Hey everybody, it's Alexander Williamson here with the Secret History living inside of your your aquarium. How is everybody doing? It's a weekend, so we're gonna start off and see how how the internets are working down in the fish room in Endler's game. Not to be confused with Ender's game. Let's turn the lights on. I've had them off just so that... T-Hang, what's up, man? How's it going? Today I want to talk a little bit about a couple things. First, I want to talk about shrimp. I want to talk about all the babies that are happening in the Devon tank. Thanks to Betsy for the light there and support. And that's in remembrance of her dog that has passed on. And then I wanted to also discuss, I had a terrible, worst I've ever seen overnight Planaria outbreak in my main shrimp tank. So I want to talk about how I treated that, other ways to treat it, and a little bit about dewormers, how they work, the history, blah, blah, blah. And other than that, it's up to you guys where you want to go with this. So we can have question and answer. We can have all sorts of whatever you guys want to throw at me. And other than that, I'll just do my thing, okay? So other than that, I've got some new plants. They're kind of exciting. I went to a plant store. Well, I went to Aquarium Zen. My buddy Steve owns the shop, and I love that shop. We've become friends via me basically camping out in his shop frequently and oogling at his creations and selling him hardscape and stuff like that. But we've become close, and I've also he gave me a bag full of plant clippings from his display aquariums, which was unbelievably kind because, he can sell that stuff for good money. So let's turn all the lights on. Let's flip it around to the shrimpity rounds. And there's something smudged on the lens. One sec. Let's see what's going on here. I don't know why it looks foggy to me. Looks a bit foggy. Alright, it's midnight here. I'll probably fall asleep, Animo. Well, welcome. I like your kitty cats in your thumbnail picture. That is something special in a half shell. So, this tank, 2 days ago, had Planaria in it, and I took a video of it. So thick that you could, it looked like there was something in the water. Literally the entire water area had Planaria. And I'm not talking about the parameciums. Let's see if we can find a paramecium. There's paramecium that hang out in shrimp tanks. There's diatom algae, obviously. But paramecium, here's a paramecium. Let's see if we can get it to focus on my finger. They're little worms. They've got little triangular heads when they're stretched out, and they don't really do anything. They sometimes get grouped as Planaria, but they don't really do anything harmful, so to speak. They just eat food and they're gross. Now, what you can see here is I still have some Planaria. So this is when it becomes not good. They create these colonies, and this has happened overnight. I've moved. It started in this food dish, so let me tell you that. Oh yeah, no problem. Swag Skywalker, aka Nerdboy Aquatics. We were talking about some cribs and some ideas on how to troubleshoot once they've paired off so that they don't attack one another and so forth. So basically, can you see this? Have you seen this? Have you heard this? This is what the paramecium, or as they're more commonly known, the Planaria, look like when they've created a little swarm. And if you can see, let's try to get it to focus on that mid-water. I might have to put something in the tank that's dark for it to focus. I'll use the handle of a net. So if you see, can you see all those little worms? Those are very young Planaria. These ones happen to be green. You can see them floating by the handle there. And I just disturbed their little nest. And so the main way to deal with this is a water change and cleaning up food. So it's my bad. I had too much food going on in this tank. Basically, Gareth Doyle, welcome from Ireland. Great to have you. Welcome, mate. You know, I think I love it when I have people. I love it when we have people from all over the world in here. So thank you for joining. I appreciate that. I also love like Mark's shrimp tanks and things like that over in the UK. But Ireland, close to my heart. I've got Irish family and Scottish family. So welcome. Let's see. I don't want to miss anything. Did you get the Tupperware method from Flip Aquatics? Actually, I saw that he did that, but this was a method that I did a long time ago to avoid Hydra and Planaria. And basically, I would put... I got the idea to put the Brightwell. Like, I didn't know about Brightwell before Flip Aquatics, so thanks to Rob on that one. But in this tank, I do have substrate that is causing the pH to stay a little bit lower, but the Brightwell works really well. For me, in my tap water, if I use Brightwell as the substrate predominantly, all things considered, it will keep my pH at around 5.5, which is a bit too low. So I like to mix in a little bit of crushed coral, a little bit of that, and then some plants to kind of even things out and buffer it. Plants are a great buffer for KH and pH. People don't really realize that oftentimes, but they really do a pretty decent job of also mitigating that. So, in any case, the Planaria bloomed over in there, and they bloomed underneath, like deep under the substrate within there. And they were coming out at night, like at some point that I wasn't noticing them, because I check on my tanks at night too. I have insomnia, yada yada. But they had done that, and then also behind the tank, shrimp had like squirreled away food underneath the rock hides I have in this tank. And there were just these massive green clusters of them, and now you can see they're floating in the water as when I... Like, let me just show you, like, this water maybe looks fairly clear except for the algae behind it. Well, when I put this in, you'll see that there's actually a bunch of worms in the water still. Maybe you will. Yeah, you can see them floating by. So, what did I do to fix this issue? So, the first thing I did was I went and I got myself... well, this isn't the first thing, but the best thing to do, I went and got some dog dewormer. This one, I mean, you can buy pig dewormer or sheep dewormer. This was originally used as, so this is Safeguard something or other, made in Austria, and it's the heavy hitter. It's levamisol. And you can also pick up other things like what's it called? Fenbendazole. Yeah, fenbendazole, that's what it's called. Fenbendazole, that is your less harsh treatment. But this I picked up because my Tatia catfish, also the wood cats that I have that look like little orcas, I wanted to basically deworm them also, and they may have things like hookworms or, you know, tapeworms, bigger problems than just these little guys. Planaria themselves will not cause a problem like existing, but one, they compete for food, two, they're gross, and three, they just leave this unsightly like mesh of goo. It looks like ectoplasm or something, and it can get really thick and like jelly. They secrete this protoplasm, and I'm not making that up. That is what it is called. In between the cells, it's protoplasm. Now, just so we're not all bummed out on the state of things, I just wanted to show you that my blue dream, the bluest line in the world from Lucas Bretts, they're all ootin' about, babies being born like there's no tomorrow. Over in this tank, we've got all sorts of babies also. We've got green jade babies. You can't see that one. Yellow babies. Red babies. The red babies are growing like light speed. They're not like they're almost ready to go into their own tank. Some of them actually have really red really genes, which is interesting because these guys came from Lucas Brett's. Here's another one. This one's from, there were 2 pregnant reds and they had separate batches of babies. Also, we've got a pregnant golden bee, white bee, whatever you want to call it, snow white bee. This one's pink. And then I wanted to show you something about overfeeding / basically this is what happens when you're not careful and you put plants from a big fish tank. So this hornwort and water wisteria, basically I put it in here and it had eggs all over it and I was like, they're not gonna all hatch, I'm not gonna sweat it. Put it in here, look at all the baby snails. Now granted, those are baby shrimp there, so these are teeny tiny snails and I can take care of them quickly. But it's a catch-22 because these snails are going to prevent the planaria. It's kind of one or the other when you have overfeeding. It can happen. So I just wanted to point that out. And also on the back wall here, there's some planaria that has built up a little gummy section and they've caught a teeny tiny baby snail and they are eating it. So planaria eat meat. Now, they don't usually eat baby shrimp or anything like that. But as I said, that gumminess can be a problem, hence why all the babies are hanging out on this wall with the algae. I know everybody likes a clean tank, but leave some algae for your shrimp. They will love you for it. So, the other thing I want to talk about today is how to keep multiple species in the same tank and multiple colors of similar or the same species, and doing your homework on how to do that with the least amount of culling needed. Also, the Babaulti shrimp in this tank, if I can get past, see the planaria is just killing the zoom towards the back of the tank. But these are Babaulti shrimp. Both of them are hanging out here. Let's see if we can get a better view from the side. And we can. Come on. I'm doing a MacGyver crawl here. So these are Babaulti shrimp, and they are my pet project. Bigger than all the others. There you can see some normal planaria / flatworms, parameciums, whatever you want to call them. Those are not a big deal. Those just eat detritus, those white ones. The other, it's the yellowy and greeny ones that really can bloom. Literally, they bloomed overnight from visible to not, and overnight there were millions. Now, they can split every 6 hours or every 3 hours depending on the species. And if you think about that, if you have, say, 500 hidden in under a rock, 500 splits into 2, so that's 1,000. So 6 hours later, that splits again, 2,000, then 4, then 8. And within 24 to 48 hours, you can have hundreds of thousands of these things from a bloom that you didn't even know existed under something. So it's a real thing that happens with shrimp tanks, and I wanted to share with you guys what I did about it. So, and also you can see there's still snail eggs, so there's probably still too much food. So I've backed off on feeding any food that's not directly coming straight out, like maybe some green beans or something like that. The pellets and stuff seem to really attract the shrimp, or they're not parasitic, but the pests. So, so I wanted to say too, this was a female, and I've got some video recorded of these Babaultis, which are Indian, and they can turn as dark green as this, or they can turn orange as a pumpkin, or they can be clear or brown. This is a male here. He's turning back to his greenish blue color for some reason, whereas this female's turning more of an orangey yellow color. And they just do that throughout the day. I mean, they do it when they're stressed and there's a threat to them, they definitely do it. But, yes, so you guys are totally right in the chat. How much levamisol did I use? It's usually about 1 gram or half a gram per 10 gallons of water. A little goes a long way. It can kill any soft-bodied animal like snails and things like that. but usually it doesn't do that. And oh, thanks United Tanks, man. Walter, how's it going, buddy? So yeah, he knows what's going on with this colony. So I've spent over $150 to get these shrimp in here, and I've had half die in shipping of the Babaultis, which was a bummer. And I knew I was taking that risk. Like, they get stressed really easily. And then I had another half die within a day to 3 days of getting them. And then half of what was left has kind of died out also. But there's a silver lining to all that, which is the 3 that I have left out of whatever, 12 or 14 that I've been sent total. The silver lining is that they had babies, and the babies are in the tank, and there's got to be at least 30 or 40 babies. Now, we'll see if the babies survive, but usually with shrimp, the babies, if the adults aren't doing well and they still are able to give birth, that generation is like bulletproof in your water. It's like they are raised to understand your water and to use it properly. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, so I used the levamisol, and the other thing I did was I took, let's scoot it over here. So I took out a lot of just debris from the bottom with the gravel vac. I took out all the filter floss from the hang off the back, and I added, this didn't even have a hang off the back. Mr. D, thank you. I'm glad you subscribe to this channel as well. I hope to get lots more interesting shrimp, but shrimp costs money, and I'm a crazy artist who doesn't have a lot of it, and Patreon is the way I make money for the channel. Other than that, I just use my own money, obviously. The Patreon right now, I think I'm getting $30 a month or so, and I really want to thank everybody who's supporting me through that. It means a lot to me, and it makes it just it's encouragement. You know, subscribing is also encouragement, but when somebody's like, you know what, you saved my fish tank, you're there when I want to chat about like how to save a fish or something like that, and they decide to show their gratitude by either like Venmo, and they're just like, here's some money or whatever, here's $5. That means so much to me because my channel is not it's not monetized. So thank you very much for the support, and I'd love to have more shrimp because I can keep them in the limited space that I have, and you know, I can keep them in that space, and with these techniques that I'm going to talk about today, I can keep them together somewhat too. So I added a hang off the back filter. I put all new filter floss in it, plus a sponge, and that basically is cycling out the free-floating Planaria, because it's an uphill battle. Granted, you know, we've got probably 500,000 of them in this tank now, and there were probably 3 million of them the other night, and so they can still split, but if they're not getting the food they need, they won't be splitting, and they actually split like a horror movie where their head splits in half and they just rip down the middle. Also, if you think smushing them is a good idea, it's not, because they can be cut into like 10 pieces and they'll grow into 10 different parameciums. They're really fascinating creatures, and there's over like, I think it's 1,800 species that they know of them, but to us in the aquaria hobby, we just say, you know, Planaria or worms or whatever. So in this tank, the other thing I've done is gotten rid of the food. I've put some snails in. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to steal some of this crazy snail. Yeah, Betsy's the moderator, and she also helps run the Facebook group by the same name. So if you guys want to share pictures of your tank and whatnot, you can always message me through Facebook or email or just on these live chats, whatever. However you want to get a hold of me, there's a lot of ways. And I try when I have time to troubleshoot for anybody who is subscribed to the channel. Also, there's perks and stuff that we post both places, like, you know, 10% off at Flip Aquatics. To get that, you want to use the code history with a capital H and then the number 10, all one word. That's in the description. And then to get things like the jade shrimp that I have, or some of the plants that I might show later in the cast, also lots of fish and things like that. Aquatic Arts is one of my go-tos. That's where I got the moss ball. Is everybody else hearing stuff? Cecilia says she can't hear. So the moss balls I got from them, and they're just great for shrimp. Okay, all right, people can hear. Sweet. Thanks, guys. Cecilia, it must be on your end. But yeah, so Aquatic Arts, if you want to use them, I highly recommend it because they have good prices. And they're a trans shipper, essentially. So they bring in fish and shrimp and things from all over the world. And then they take those and try to breed them and sell them. And whatever happens first happens. So what's the best starter shrimp for a newbie? This best starter shrimp, hands down, is going to be your cherry red shrimp. Now, these days, a lot of shrimp are falling into that category. But go back, watch some of my Neocaridina videos, and that will help you take a look at the variety that there is of color. So we're going to move some stuff around in this tank, and you'll see the differences. I'll point them out today. So let's scoot this light aside. Let's get some shrimp coming out. So for me, this is my baby tank. This is where I put pregnant shrimp from other tanks and I let them have their babies. And then it's a small 5-gallon tank, but that lets me keep a really good eye. And there's mostly a plain floor with movable plants. That lets me keep a really good eye on what's in here. And as soon as they reach a 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch, I'll put them back in their tank. It's just when they're really young babies, they tend to get eaten like crazy. So, Dr. Forceps disturbs the substrate. Yes. So, these are red cherry shrimp over here. Back in here, let's pull some closer. There might be some pregnant ones. This one's got a saddle, and she's ready to get pregnant. Whereas behind them, these are actually a totally different species. These are Caridina cantonensis, and these are Neocaridina davidi. They've also been probably mixed with some sort of zangonensis, I think is how you say it, which is just another Neocaridina. And the difference between Caridina and Neocaridina is basically that, and here's a baby red cherry shrimp that's coloring up nicely. The difference between them is that the red cherry shrimp, as well as these blue dreams here, this one's really losing some color, so I hope it just shed and is going to come back with better color. But these blue guys here, they're also pretty easy. If you have a good source like LRB Aquatics, that's Lucas Brett's, or if you have Flip Aquatics or Aquatic Arts, all those places are great. You can get a starter pack, but my advice is if you start a colony of shrimp, start with Neocaridina. You can keep them in a wide variety of parameters. And so this kind of leads right back into what I was going to talk about later, but we'll talk about it now. So if you want to keep multiple species of shrimp in the same tank, first you want to master taking care of your Neocaridina. Like maybe 6 months, learn how to not make them die. I mean, sometimes 1 or 2 will die randomly with water changes or something when you're new, and you'll just have to get that down. I really recommend buying 10 of them, and then usually like 1 to 3 females at a time will be pregnant. And once they're pregnant and you have a generation or 2 giving birth, you have the security to kind of not freak out as much that they're going to die. And hopefully you can kind of sell them to other breeders and things like that, or even local fish shops, and then kind of recoup your money. Because I know it's nothing to scoff at if they're $5 a pop for decent quality, and you buy 10 of them, there's $50. Whereas the Blue Dreams, I paid $8 plus shipping, and so that comes out to, I spent over $100 to get this colony started, but now I've got babies. So the babies, I'm going to allow these babies to grow up, and then their babies will be the ones that I start selling, because inevitably, if you want to keep shrimp to have a line where it has good color and reliability, you have to get rid of some culls. So I also recommend, if you've got one shrimp tank, have a fish tank or something. If you're breeding shrimp, just breed them in a tank with no fish. If you do have fish in the tank, so this is back to the treatment of the Planaria. Fish don't love eating Planaria, but they will eat them if there isn't other food. So I've put several-day-old fry in here, and there's only like 5 or 6, but they'll eat the Planaria and stuff, and I have to watch their size very closely because I don't want them eating the baby shrimp. But there's quite a bit of hiding area in here anyways, and they seem to be eating the Planaria. So I've got little Endler babies as well as some killifish babies in here bulking up, just eating the Planaria and the Hydra and copepods, other stuff that's in the tank. Now, I would start with red cherry shrimp. They've been around since 2002 in the United States, and they have been around since 1994 in Asia. And really 1997 is kind of when they became popular in Asia, or started getting around to suppliers. And they were all kind of like this one, where they're like kind of translucent and a little bit spotty. Let me try to find a better example that you guys can see that'll focus. Probably one of these babies will look like, pretend it's an adult, but they looked like this kind of more, where they didn't have solid color and they were just kind of blotchy. And now they've gotten, you can get really good ones. You can get cheap shrimp for $1. You can get red cherry shrimp for $1 if you want on certain websites. But you're going to spend a lot of time pulling out their babies, and you may have like 80% of the babies you have to get rid of. So over here too, I want to point out that this baby, if it'll focus, I don't think it will, so let's do the net trick again. This is a baby gold, a baby golden shrimp, and that is awesome to see. I knew I had this gal is pregnant in this tank, and she's a gold bee, but she's really pink. And it, for some reason in this tank and this time right now, these shrimp are all giving birth in clusters, not all in one day, which is odd. Like they're giving birth like once like for a week, and then there's nothing for a week, and then they give birth to more. So it's kind of interesting, but it seems like they're all healthy and doing well. So I've got baby jade shrimp and baby, the only Caridina species I have a baby of right now is these gold bees or snow bees or honeybees, whatever you want to call them. They're basically Caridina cantosis, pretty close to some of the wilder strains. In the wild, they kind of look like striped like this, but with clear on them. And they've been selectively bred to become more white. And then in that wild strain, since they have brown on them, they were either bred out as red or black. So all Caridina shrimp from the wild were then turned into, well, these guys aren't the best example, but they were turned into one of these two shrimp, which is crystal blacks or crystal reds. Now, these shrimp require cooler temperatures. So like crystal red and black shrimp require, down the wormhole, welcome, Crystal red and black shrimp require a temperature of somewhere between 68 and 76 to really thrive. 72 is optimal. And they want a low TDS, definitely under 200. Shooting for 100 is the best. They want a KH, and KH is the ability of, basically, it's calcium carbonate in the water, and it's the ability of the water to protect and have excess ions to either give or uptake the alkalinity in the water, so you don't get these big swings. Because shrimp, more than anything, you can keep them, even the sensitive ones, sometimes you can keep them outside their normal parameters, but it has to be completely consistent. It's the big swings in pH or in TDS, things like that, that can really get them, or not having enough calcium. So with cherry red shrimp, any water that's holding up well, if you've got other fish that you've kept alive for some time, like guppies or tetras, things like that, you're probably going to be okay with some red cherry shrimp and just throwing them in. A couple may die, but you're probably going to be okay. Now, the thing that you want to look for is what's going on here. Oh, well, she moved. But once they... Joseph, welcome. Once they start molting, they'll get a line on their side. And let's see if we can get this in the shot. I don't think we can. But if they don't split open their shell and get out, because they grow by their external shell gets too tight and they grow a new shell underneath it, and then it cracks the old shell and they sneak out, and there's like a little skeleton of a shrimp there. And it's important to leave those in the tank. Like, here's a piece of one on this moss ball. And it's important to leave those in the tank because they use the calcium and chitin and various nutrients for other things. Now, here's a really good example of red really offspring coming out of Lucas Brett's line. You can tell that's going to be a red really when it grows up, and that's a Neocaridina. So, where do the red reallys come from? They come from the same line. The translucency in nature sometimes happens in the tank as well, and you'll end up with red really shrimp. So even if a shrimp died, leave it in the tank. No, not necessarily if the shrimp died. It's the shell that you want. And also, its exoskeleton. I'm going to see if I can find a good example so you can see what they... Oh, here's one under here. There's always some in my tanks. So you see that exoskeleton back under there that's kind of floating around? The shrimp will come and they'll eat from that, and they'll get the vitamins they need for their own shell. Now you can see there were some worms also eating it, but yes. So it's kind of a balance. Like, those worms aren't going to harm anything, but they're just like snails. They're in competition for the food. So I would recommend you use the red cherry shrimp, which are quite beautiful now, and get a decent strain. Like these ones here, they're really beautiful. You're going to pay a little more for each shrimp. You may be paying $5 to $7 for really good shrimp, but it's worth it. Over here, we've got, just while I can see her, another gold bee that's pregnant. Now, all these bee shrimp, they have, these are Caridina cantonensis, and they are all related to the natural crystal shrimp. And so this is basically what happens if you have a low-grade white shrimp that is like a crystal shrimp. And it's basically what happens in the wild with another pigment type of morph. And you get these, and then these can be crossed with many shrimp. So these can be crossed with blue bolts. They can be crossed with red pandas, with crystal red, crystal black. They're all the same thing evolutionarily. And so I don't know who impregnated both these gold bees, the one in here and the other one. But those two shrimp you're looking at are different species. This is a Neocaridina blue dream, and this is a Caridina cantosis. So And then up here, as I said before, these are Caridina Babaulti, and these are found on the island of Sulawesi, and then they're also found in India. These particular ones are from India, and they're not big in the hobby, and my goal here, wasting all my money, it's not a waste if they survive, but the goal in spending all that money with Aquatic Arts, David and Preston over there helped me out, and they gave me a discount on some of it, was to get a line going in the Seattle area because nobody has any. And they change color, and that's really cool to me. Now, also another thing, if you're new at shrimp keeping, this is always a good sign when you see them juggling their eggs like that. The females, the mothers, they get impregnated once they have what we call a saddle. Now a saddle, let's see if there's a saddle there. That dark spot on the blue shrimp's shoulder, that's eggs basically in the ovaries. You can see it's a lighter spot and then a dark spot. And those, once she's ready now, she'll find a male like this guy here and get pregnant. And that, just like over here, we got another saddle ready to go. So these shrimp are ready to get pregnant. So in theory, I would not put them in this tank with the red shrimp since they're of the same type, because let's wait and see what hold on, I'll take a look at some of these things. But basically, yeah, I wouldn't put them together because they're the same species. Now with bee shrimp and Caridina shrimp, I like putting them together because what you're gonna get is they don't do halfway between. Like Neocaridinas, if you put a cherry and a blue dream together, you may get a purple shrimp. That's a 1 in a million shot. You may get half red, half blue, but more than likely you're gonna get clear, kind of brownish, wild strains of shrimp. I also wanted to point out, here's a blue bolt. This is a really nice blue bolt from Flip Aquatic. As I said, the link to the discounts are in the description. The reason I'm pushing y'all to use either Aquatic Arts or Flip is because both places and I have chatted, and it has been agreed upon that if enough people are using the codes, we're going to do a giveaway. So we're going to, I get these shrimp usually for like, I'll get maybe $50 credit when I spend 100 or something like that. And then, which helps me out because then I get to show you guys the shrimp and raise them. And then also it gives you guys, I won't do it without getting a discount code of at least 10%, if not 20. And they've got plants, fish, all sorts of stuff now. They're branching out. Also, she came out, so I wanted to show you guys. This is another Neocaridina. This is the same as a cherry shrimp. Think of it as a yellow cherry shrimp. And she has eggs. You may not be able to see it because she is so incredibly yellow. She's from Lucas Brett's line at LRB Aquatics. And a lot of the babies that are in this tank are also from another female. Now, the second that she gives birth, she will go back upstairs into the tank with her kind because I don't want the red shrimp impregnating her. There's still a chance they could if she starts to get a saddle while pregnant. And right now I can see her saddle forming. If you see that dark spot, there's a white yellow spot behind it by her head on her shoulder. And if that continues down her back, I'll know that she's ovulating and has eggs ready to be fertilized. And that's when you can get crosses. Now, if you put red and yellow shrimp together, it's not always a bad thing. So if you go back and look at my videos on the genome or the genetic tree of various shrimp, the Neocaridinas have all been bred from several wild types, and then red was popular, then from red came orange and red Rileys, and then from there there were mutations that went into yellow, and from orange there were also mutations that went into greenish kind of snotty colors, and then it's all been refined. Now the blue has come from dark red, and basically that dark red that you see in some of these shrimp has a blue color to it in its undercoat that maybe you don't see. And that right there, what you just witnessed, is probably the extent of multi-species beating up on each other. They kind of just do that. Once in a while, I've seen pregnant females have their eggs like snatched at or bit at, and that's no good ever, obviously. But yeah, so this is how I keep multi-species and colors in a tank. Is you have to do your research, learn where the lineage came from, know that if you don't get those babies out within 2 to 3 months of them being born, which, you know, like right now, you see this size shrimp compared to an adult, they're still pretty easy to find in this 5 gallon tank for me. So I work on it for a month out, like I plan on it a month ahead of when I think I need to get them out. And I start pulling them out and putting them in other tanks. So up here we've got another red tank. I put just red shrimp up in there, and then I don't worry about them. And then down here, I keep my very best red shrimp, and they have a breeding population. The other thing I recommend, so ideally you can do a setup no matter what kind of shrimp you're doing. If you're going to have Caridina shrimp, in here it's interesting, is a snail just slowly drifting, completely neutrally buoyant. If you're going to do Neocaridina and Caridina, you need to set your water parameters to the Caridina. So these guys are called red pandas. If you notice, they're red with white stripes that don't go all the way around, whereas crystal shrimp are white with red stripes that usually go most of the way around. And so essentially they're just different lineages. Now these ones can be bred with, they'll all interbreed with each other. But as I said, unlike Caridina, or unlike Neocaridina shrimp, the cherry shrimps, the yellow shrimps, things like that, they don't revert to the wild usually. They'll revert to a shared ancestor. So if that means that like a red panda and a black King Kong have babies, maybe a quarter of them will end up as black King Kongs, a quarter will end up as more red pandas, and half will end up as crystal shrimp, which is like back in their lineage. So putting them in a tank together is more fun, and you have to do less culling. Now, any line you're really working on, you want to keep it all the same shrimp in the same tank. But if you're a hobbyist who just likes color and wants to play with a few things, these Babaulti will not breed with anything other than striped zebra Babaulti, so they're fine. They can reproduce and turn orange and yellow and green and do their fun stuff. The blue bolts in this tank are fine. They will interbreed with the crystals and also the golden bees. And then the blue dreams will only breed with each other. So in that way, I've gotten 3 species and 6 morphs of shrimp living in the same tank. Let me look at some comments. Just let's see. Crystal shrimp, similar to ghost shrimp. Ghost shrimp are a different species. They're from the Caribbean and southern South America. I have Planaria in my fire reds, and I think it was introduced from plants I ordered on Aquarium Co-op. Your opinion regarding growing them outdoors in a pond undercover at around 84 degrees. Cherry shrimp. Cherry shrimp, usually you can grow them outside. The main thing is you don't want it to get over 84 or 5 degrees. That will cook their little brains. Unfortunately, their flesh cooks at a low temperature, just like prawns or shrimp that you eat. And you want to keep them cooler if possible. The best target range is like 72 to 76 in your pond, and so if you can keep it from going up at night in your pond, Riley, then I would say go ahead and do it. Just provide them lots of hiding spots and substrate at the bottom. Make sure that their pH is somewhere between 6.0 and 8.0. That's how versatile these guys are nowadays. I think 7.2 seems to be a good one for me, 7.4 for Neocaridina. But that being said, they've lived in all of my tanks at different temperatures and things. Joseph Lambert, I ordered my fire red shrimp from LRB and just fostered 50 red really shrimp from a lady who didn't want them anymore. So I'm kind of new to the shrimps. That's why I asked. Okay, yeah, I have red cherry shrimp with some endlers, and they leave them alone until a female has eggs, and then they try to kill her. Yes, there's something in the water that both male and female shrimp understand. Also, I'm gonna film this. This is the stretching that goes on when they're gonna change shells. So if you're watching your shrimp and you're trying to just think when they're gonna have babies, watch them arc their back. And hopefully, she'll do it again. The red and white one here, the red crystal, and they'll arch their back and it stretches out their existing shell, and then it cracks right at the end of that red band on her shoulder slash head, and then they'll crawl out through that. But after they do that, they're very susceptible. They have a soft, malleable exoskeleton, and so even other shrimp can harm them by kind of beating up on them or flicking them. And so oftentimes they'll hide, especially the females. But this is also the time when they can grow at a fast rate because that shell is still soft and malleable, their exoskeleton. And that means that they're likely to get pregnant, if at all it's when they molt. Now, the warmer you keep your water, so we're talking about ponds, we're talking about tanks, the warmer you keep your water up in that range when you look at what water parameters are good for what shrimp, the faster the metabolism you're going to have your shrimp living with. And so, yes, that may mean your babies grow faster and that your shrimp mature faster. So instead of 5 or 6 months to adulthood with cherry shrimp, you may end up with 4 months. So that's why I always try to get my babies out of these tanks at 2 to 3 months. And that seems to be a really good way that way I've got a whole extra month buffer time to search for them. And in a 5-gallon tank, that's not hard. Now this tank is harder to search for, so it's not a nursery tank for me. But this tank, I'll be able to deal with that just fine and get these guys out of here. Now that clear one, that is probably also a golden bee shrimp. So I wanted to finish up what I was talking about also. And I'm really glad y'all are in the chat today. I appreciate you guys all sharing your time with me. Brian says, hey dude, just wanted to say that I appreciate the knowledge. The video the other day about the aquarium lady was pretty awesome. Well, I appreciate that. I feel like women have gotten a bum rap in the aquarium hobby. Obviously, well, maybe it's not obvious to women, but statistically there are more men in the hobby than women. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't some incredible women who go just as hard or maybe harder, more hardcore into the hobby as men. But statistically, like, my YouTube is unfortunately, and I wish it was 50-50, but it's like 80% men and 20% women. Now, that being said, folks like Betsy and things, other women seem to be more engaged, and so I don't know, that's interesting. I seem to have engagement of just 50-50, so women must be much more engaged in it. Now you go over to other channels like Rachel O'Leary's, and her split is more female oriented. So I think people gravitate towards their gender when they want to hear a talk or receive information. It's just more comforting or something like that, perhaps. But I want to try to break down that barrier a little bit. I'm a feminist. I believe that men and women should be equal. And I do believe in chivalry, so that kind of screws up the feminism. But I do believe that they should have, they have equal capabilities and should have equal opportunity in outcome. So I just want to throw that out there, that people like, oh no, we've got a dead fish. Sorry, guys. The glare's coming in here too, so we might move this party upstairs without the glares. We got a dead fish. Whenever you have a dead fish, especially in a smaller tank, this will be alright because it's 20 gallon, but check for ammonia spikes. I know personally there's not an ammonia spike going on here because, where are they? Of my ruby red tetras. They always turn colors like white or clear when there's an ammonia spike. So yeah, how about them apples? All right, we're gonna have a funeral right here, guys. You were a good endler. I don't know your name, but so long, fish. All right. And then also, whenever you have a dead fish, I always recommend that you wash off the net at a bare minimum. But I like to, like, after I do this, I'll hopefully remember to soak the net in a little bit of bleach water, because we don't know if it was a bacterial infection or what that killed that fish. Also, just because the light's coming in and it makes the tank look less like crap. Here is another side project. This tank has a pH of 4.8 currently, and it is where I will put the Tatia catfish if they're not doing well in their other tank, and it's also probably where I'll put the pair to breed when I try to do that. Yes, thank you, Riley. That's awesome. May you not end up in the Puget Sound. Good night, sweet prince. Also, you can see here, I need to move these out of the light, just the direct light. But these are vinegar eels, and I've been feeding those to my fish pretty successfully. It's just 50% apple cider vinegar, 50% water, and I've split the colony, but you can see the difference between planaria and vinegar eels. Now, vinegar eels, they need that acidic environment of vinegar, and they've been known since the Middle Ages as something that happens when you brew beer, wine, vinegar, things like that. And they need that acidity, so they'll only live in the tank for like 6 to 12 hours. So they're a great little live food if you don't want a bunch of nasties in your tank. Now, also in this tank, I'm just taking a look around because I haven't yet today, and the Tatia catfish are more active. So these are the little baby orca whales, and let's show them off just because I know everybody loves them. I'm not going to stress them out. I'm not going to do what you guys think I'm going to do and freak out, man. So, but here I'll just move the, oh, there it goes. So they're getting more comfortable. They're coming out in the day, at least enough to swim around. And they're real adorable. So here's one. And you can see that white belly, kind of a chubby belly. They're mini orcas. And then the spine on the back, but their mouth is friggin' huge, and so they definitely have the ability to eat even like these tetras, which, so everybody's in peril in this tank, but it's okay. Like, if that's what my babies want to eat, that's what they'll get. Let them eat cake, which was never said, by the way. Okay, so we're getting some serious glare. Oh, there goes another Tatia catfish. They seem to like this rockhide more. There's another one over here. So they've come out a lot more, even though they're nocturnal, which is a good sign. They also move very quickly sometimes. Oh, you see the size of its mouth? Can I get a like? If you guys haven't liked yet, just the fact that these guys came out for the video, can we get a like? So I want to put another hang off the back filter on this tank again. There are cribs, catfish, and Japanese blue endlers in here. And the light is all a blue light LED that I don't particularly like. Up here, we've got my CPD breeding project. Yohojo Cromwood, thank you. We've got baby tiger endlers. We've got female guppies, or endlers, I should say, that are loaded to the brim. We have Japanese jades, shrimp, and then also over here we have my favorite Danio, other than erythromicron, and these guys are the purplish gold ring Danio. It turns out, talked to an ichthyologist, a fish professor, they don't think that these are actually gold ring or Kyath Danios, which is what they were being sold as. They think there's something else. So there's some babies being born and some eggs being dropped in the tank. So I'll let you know how all that's going. It's all a little bit of a rinky-dink situation, but I really want more of these because I haven't seen them in the hobby and they were accidentally brought in. Now, I think also that these Tatia catfish are having some issues with skin flukes, which are parasites that get in the gills and cause them to have to breathe heavier. So I also treated to take care of the parasitic environment in the tank. They came straight from the Amazon, and thus they carry a lot of odd things. Let's go upstairs so that the stuff isn't lagging. But say goodbye to Tatiana, the even though it's a male, I've named this one Tatiana. They're Tatia catfish. Also, check out this golden ram's horn snail that I've been trying to breed this variety for a long time. So I've got a black and a gold, and now I want to mix them together, the red, the black, and the gold. We're going to go upstairs after I wash my hands real quick. I just got more water on them. And with all the parasites and stuff, let's be careful. So, with levamisole, as I was saying, the way it works is rather interesting. So levamisole is similar to nicotine, and if you've ever smoked too much tobacco, you get sick to your stomach and you get twitchy, you get muscle spasms. Jimmy H. Fishes, welcome everybody. It's good to see so many folks in here today. But yeah, so levamisole, metronidazole, all the different sols, basically, there's like 30 of them, have different effects, but the main way they work is they cause the worms or soft-shelled animals, they cause them to speed up their nervous system, and then it starts twitching, and then they release sucking on whatever they were sucking on the internal end of the fish, and in the intestines and things like that, and it ends up causing their eggs and everything even into having basically like seizures, but they're simpler animals than that. Laura with the no, welcome, hello. And is it less laggy now, guys, now that I'm upstairs? In here, I have also, I'd like to mention, since we have some late arrivals, that we do have a Facebook group by the same name. Good place to share photos, ask questions, etc. Thanks, Betsy. Yeah, totally on the money there. So, let's see, was there anything else? Does anybody have any other questions about treating planaria other than you can use baby fish? Be careful, they'll eat your shrimp if they're big enough. You can use a hang off the back filter to just simply mechanically filter out some of them floating around. And then levamisole or some sort of dewormer is what you want to do. Now, originally, dewormer was used in humans. Levamisole was used in humans, and it turned out that there were issues with pregnancy, and Janssen Pharmaceuticals, which you probably heard of if you know pharmaceutical companies at all, they're one of the big five. They've invented a lot of different pharmaceuticals. They've been around a long time. They found that also the most of the dewormers, all the amisols, things that end in amisols, basically that they were causing not just the organism of the worms and parasites to have twitchy, just like they use tobacco, or nicotine, I should say, as a pesticide. They kind of engineered something similar in levamisole and ended up using it. And what it does is it increases the blood pressure in dogs, cats, humans, any large mammal, and basically now in horse racing and greyhound racing, I'm not endorsing either of those things. I don't want to get into that, but it's considered a performance enhancing drug, dewormer, because it also increases the nervous system. Fenbendazole is one of those as well. If humans were to take it, it actually is a slight stimulant. Now, the other major problem is I work with drug outreach, helping people on the streets in Seattle, helping them get beds for the night, resources, clean needles. It's one of the things I do to volunteer on usually on Fridays. But that comes along with on the street, I see alerts, and levamisole is in 90% of the coke that's seized in the United States now. And one, that's because there were worms and parasites rotting in these bricks of cocaine in the Colombian and Peruvian jungle. But two, it's because it mimics a stimulant and it also releases large amounts of dopamine. So they wanted to use it as an antidepressant after the dewormer use in the 50s and 60s. And it turned out that the side effects were so horrid when you take it ongoing that they don't want to do that. So that's awesome, Joseph Lambert. I'm right there with you. I don't know. I mean, yes, I use tanks to encourage my sobriety. On medications that I take right now, I can't drink, and I quit drinking before that anyways. But in my lifetime, you name it, I've done it as far as that goes, and partying and having a wild life when I was younger. And I've always kept fish off and on through that, and they are really it's nice to have nature in the house even when I'm stuck in a city and take care of other beings trying to put their health ahead of thoughts of my own, like I want to get high or drunk or whatever that may be. So I still, even 9 years clean, I still have issues with that. So cheers off to you. Awesome, Joseph. I really, there's a lot of us out there that are the same thing, and that use the fish hobby as the same thing. Also, there's a lot of folks out there. I hope I'm not divulging anything, Betsy, but a lot of us have chronic pain also, and a lot of former users do too. And we all use it as, like Betsy and I, plus a lot of other people that I've spoken to, as a way for things like PTSD, chronic pain. I have lupus, and, she has also chronic pain issues, Betsy, the moderator in here, who also helps out on the Facebook. And it's really a relaxing thing to do, and also I think really taking care of other living things and feeling good and having the patience to say, I planted that seed or that stem and it grew into this, and I trimmed it back and it kept growing back. And just the relaxing of, I can't control what these little creatures do in my tank, but I can set them up for success or failure, and it's a lifetime to be learning. And for me, I wanted this channel to really show things to the next level. So I want to show the standard YouTube channel of, here's what's going on in my tanks, yada yada, look at my stuff. But also I want to go deeper and think, like, if I was trapped in a room with just a fish tank, how many thoughts could I think about it? So like these erythromicrons, I've done a video on how heroin dealers in Thailand and formerly Burma, but Myanmar, celestial pearl danios and erythromicrons are, and also these gold ring danios, they are all from Lake Inle and the water basin that drains into Thailand on the other side, and that's controlled by the Shan people, who have been either communist guerrillas, fascist guerrillas, or heroin dealers in the Golden Triangle. And so there's so many stories, like who would have thought about that unless you do a little bit of digging. So that's the idea behind the channel. Who would have thought that the aquarium was invented by a French woman? And sorry, the video was a little rough, but a French woman who was born a peasant during the French Revolution. At 18 years old, she walked to Paris barefoot, she was so poor, with a sketchbook on sheepskin from her farm of dresses, and she snuck her way into galas of the royal family and started making dresses, then coaxes her way to becoming a naturalist. And after she's married a man who's a merchant, she's a naturalist living in Sicily, and she to study nautilus and octopus, she invents the aquarium. Like, what a crazy story, but who would have thought that's where the glass aquarium came from? 1832. So, very interesting. And also, I wanted to say, if you guys use drugs, if you guys do whatever you do, I'm not judging. To each their own. But for me, I just knew that that wasn't a good path for me after a while, and I don't have anything against it. Like, I used to grow pot. It's legal in my state now, so I can talk about it. But, you know, for me, I just one day hit a point and I was like, you know what? I'm done. There wasn't anything bad that happened. I just knew a decade of doing things, like everything under the book, was self-destructive, and I cared about my family, and my wife really cemented it 5 years ago, meeting her, even though I had quit before that. Yeah, so in here we also have some yellow Neocaridina shrimp. We have a little bit of black beard algae, which is frustrating, but it seems to grow in these teeny clusters, and what I'll do is I'll take that whole rock out, or I'll put something over it, and then I'll rip it off, and it seems to hold it at bay for quite a while. Also, you can see a mono shrimp. They're great at cleaning algae, but apparently not black beard algae, as many of you know. This tank is all CO2. It has dual lights. It has 60 watts of bar lights in full spectrum going in, plus 2 bubbles a second. And basically in here, even though these plants may look similar, they're almost, except for this row here, they're almost all different plants that I've collected. And so this is the newest one, and this is a new Pogostemon. Also, this is Pogostemon pantanal, this red one here that's really beautiful. And let me think if there's another one in here. I got some fern, or what's it called? Stargrass that runs. So it's kind of growing in. It's only a week old, and it's gone from 3 pieces to more babies now. And then another plant, this is from Afghanistan, and I can't remember the name, but a buddy in the fish club actually had retrieved it while in Afghanistan doing some contracting work and brought it back. This is the super red that I got from Aquatic Arts. This is Ludwigia lacustra, and that's a hybrid that occurs in nature. Pogostemon erectus back here, Pogostemon octopus or octocilus, I don't remember the actual name, sorry guys. And then this is a new Ludwigia that's from Texas that Steve from Aquariums then brought me. So, and then we've got all sorts of boosts, little teeny clippings hiding out. So that's what's going on in there. Let me look through some of the other stuff so I grow my starts in that tank, and then this tank is where I grow the big tall pieces, and then I clip them. So this is these are some interesting plants. That's that Afghan one that's growing like at a funky angle, and I think it looks just beautiful. Also saves you your liver, all the pills. Let's see, I'm reading some stuff, sorry guys. Let's see how many tank you guys have. Vicky's asking. Groups seem to have somewhere between 3 and 8 or 9 tanks. I have 10 currently. If you count how they're split up, I have 14 with partitions. But my real tanks, there's really like 9 totally functional and stock tanks. Up here, you can see I also getting ready for pond season. I've got some mountain cloud minnows from Vietnam, white clouds. We've got Siamese algae eaters that are getting enormous, but they're doing their job, so yay. And then this plant doesn't seem like it's doing so well all of a sudden. I don't know what's going on. It's looking tattered. But there's another start of it right down here. This is Nymphea micrantha, and it is a beautiful plant. Let's see the underside. Check out the iridescent purple. You can only see it under certain lights at certain angles, but it is an incredibly gorgeous plant. Very rare, this morph that occurs in nature, but the leaf, it cannot pollinate itself. You cannot cross-pollinate it naturally out in nature. It only pieces break off, and then they have to form a bulb, which is a really hit and miss process. This doesn't even have a bulb. It's one of these long stems planted. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys. Today I need to do some water changes. Again, here's the Ludwigia super red. Also, we've got some mini butterfly back there, water wisteria, more pogo stem and octopus. This is golden brownie bucephalandra, and it's actually Buca philandria, which is Greek. It was Alexander the Great's horse's name. My name is Alexander, so it's a tidbit I retained. So let's feed these maniacs, and you can see I like to use I like bug bites quite a bit by Fluval, and this is the tropical mix. But the cool thing about this tank is I have a bunch of Corridoras and things down here, and they will swim all throughout down under here, and they'll get whatever these guys miss. But these guys will delve down into the jungle, so to speak, like this, to get whatever they want also. Let's see here. I think if I smoked... Do you crossbreed shrimp? Can you do videos on that, and what species you recommend to crossbreed? Yeah, I touched on that a little bit earlier in Sex Galore, but also I have a playlist that's all on shrimp, and I discussed the genetics of them. You can cross anything that's in the same species, you can cross, but it may go back to its wild form. But there is some misinformation, because there's like 3 or 4 different lines of blue dreams, and they're not really blue dreams. One is a blue dream line, but there's other lines of blue Neocaridina shrimp that got there through different breeding patterns, and some of those have been through the Bloody Mary strain, and the Bloody Mary strain reverts to red. So oftentimes you'll get red shrimp instead of the natural color shrimp. Here is a red tiger lotus. This is all new subscriber here, looking good. Fishaholics Habits, welcome. I really love all the new subscribers. You guys all sharing, liking, all of the Patreon support or PayPal or Venmo, all that stuff goes right back into this hobby so I can bring you guys more. I want to be interviewing more folks. Gary Lang's coming into town, the rainbow fish god, and I'm hoping to film that, his speech, and also talk with him a little bit. Also, I want to get microphones, but, you know, money, money, money. This is a cool new plant. This is pink flamingo crypt. It's a crypt, what is it? Crypt undulata, I think, originally, but pink flamingo is the variation of it, and you can see the veins in it, and it actually under CO2 will turn like this kind of a pink color, which is cool. You can see it here where it's turning green, but this is a low-tech tank, so that's not happening. But I want to show you guys that a low-tech tank can still look very beautiful. Mr. D, you have a wonderful dinner. Thank you for joining us, sir. Here's some yellow Neocaridinas. You saw those earlier in the video, and this is where I allow them to get pregnant and hang out with the fish and the snails and all that jazz, the autosynclus and the plecos, and then I take them downstairs, put them in the nursery tank, and they live their life there until they give birth in the nursery ward. So let's see here. Anybody else from Scotland? Oh, I love Scotland. I need to go there. I'm half Scottish, so my grandfather was born in Scotland. Williamson, obviously, Scottish name. Back over here. This tank, for only 1 week of its existence, have I ever put in... oh, and here you can see my Pulcher crib that rarely comes out, and it hides deep in the tangles, but it is doing phenomenally in all this plant cover, It loves it. You just see it stirring like a raptor in Jurassic Park or something. Uh, but yeah, so, oh, and there's the female right there. She's coming out. She's beautiful, but they're shy and they hide a lot. So, yeah. Also, one of my cherry barbs. This guy's been in the tank the longest. I can't get him out. He's just too fast and too good at hiding. I've never been able to get him out. um, so basically, if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to help out. And do you have any fish clubs in Utah? I think, yeah, I think Salt Lake City has a group. And I know Colorado has a good, like, Mile High something or other. But just Google that. I'm sure you'll find one. I've got 4 tiger endlers now. I love them, Laura says. Yeah, I love them too. They're my favorite. I think they're my favorite, but I'd really like them to have lyre tails. And I have one somewhere in this tank, if I can find him. There he is back there, who has a split tail, and I want to breed him. He's got like an oval with a split in his tail. I want lyre tails just because they learn how to use that tail like these guys do. And they do so much more interesting mating rituals when they can use both of those swords on the tail. So kind of cool. Also, I need to trim this tank and then I'll be replanting, probably plant some stuff downstairs. You can see how loaded this tank is. So I add a little bit of potassium, a little bit of iron, a little bit of nitrogen. Not usually needed. Nitrogen's not usually needed. Also, for some reason this is coming out slow. Let's see if we can increase the flow. I have a sneaking suspicion that this biologic filter that I have on here, which is just foam, I have a sneaking suspicion that that's limiting water flow. And it can actually come off because I don't have any babies in the tank that I'm worried about right now. Yeah, see, I need to clean all this off. See, that's what happens sometimes under a sponge. But it's clogging up that filter, and so I'm just getting a trickle out of this. And this is for a 100-gallon tank, or a 75-gallon tank, and it's only a 40-gallon tank. And so I need to clear all this out. I'll do this another time, not on film, other than just kind of batting the bare minimum away. Ugh, look at that mess. Good thing I have lots of catfish and stuff. But there we go. Water flowing better. Usually that's the culprit. But it's interesting. Once I feed my fish, they'll also just start eating all this stuff. It'll settle and get clogged again or whatever, unless I scoop it out with a net, which I will. But they'll actually, it's amazing how much vegetative matter fish will eat that you wouldn't expect. What's a good food in protein to feed my red cherry shrimp? Encourage breeding. Yeah, so really you want to make sure that your females have a lot of protein and a lot of calcium. I like Hikari foods, just like Hikari, or I think Fluval has a new bug bites for shrimp. But that's great. I like adding green beans, like blanch some green beans with nothing on them and put those in the tank. Score them up if you can with a little razor blade or box cutter, and they'll be able to eat it a little bit better. Spinach, cauliflower, stuff like that. It does make a mess and it can cause blooms of planaria and stuff like that. So just make sure you take it out after a few hours of it in there. Like feed it to them once in a while, a couple times a week or whatever. And that's good. They'll eat, dead fish, dead detritus of whatever form, excess algae flakes in the tank, spirulina flakes they'll eat, but crude protein. So like I have salmon it's basically like the guts of salmon that have been ground up into a powder, and that's just a local from Aquarium Co-op fry fish food, and it is the shrimp really like it too, even though it's for fry. But Fluval and Hikari, I think, really have the best shrimp food. Also, Shrimp King does some really nice foods. They're kind of expensive, but there's a community. There's one called Cheeseburger. I'd check out Flip Aquatics for that. flu vault bug bites, I have used that. I use that with my shrimp. They also eat the pleco wafers too by them. So that's another tidbit. I wouldn't just feed them that though. It's a lot of food. But yeah, so I would recommend that. And then, yeah, Deneral has Shrimp King distribution. But yeah, they've got a protein one, they've got a color one. Take that all with a grain of salt. But yeah. Do you own crayfish? If not, I recommend you to. Oh, I have had crayfish. That was one of the first things I kept. There are local crayfish around here. There's a blue craw crayfish that lives around here, and I used to have those and these little periwinkles that I don't know their scientific name because I'm an idiot now. But they are like little shelled larvae that they use rocks to make their shell. And actually, I have a friend who does this thing which is kind of cool. And he takes the periwinkles, which, oh, they're caddisfly larvae. That's what they are. And they live underwater for a year or two or whatever. But he takes gemstones and gold flake and he puts it, that's the only substrate. And the caddisfly will use that to make their cocoon. And it's really cool. Then they crawl out and he's got this hollow pendant that's in the shape of this creature's shell. Which is pretty cool. His name is Ferg Gustafin. He goes by Ferg Gust of Wind instead of Gustafin. But yeah, interesting. Ferg, F-E-R-G. You can look up Caddisfly and you'll probably find him. He's had shows in New York and stuff, but he's a buddy of mine in the art world. From Lancashire, awesome. Is that bottle on the left-hand side of your aquarium? Yeah, this is Aquarium Co-op fertilizer. I like this stuff. There are a couple problems with it in that if you have a fully stocked tank like my 40-gallon over here, it has a bunch of nitrogen in it, and it'll skyrocket your nitrates. And so if you're somebody who likes to overload your tanks and use that as plant fertilizer, you got to be careful with it. But tanks like this that aren't super overloaded, this is right around the same inch, an inch per gallon recommendation, essentially. Easy Green, I do like it. But if you want to get serious, this is great if you don't want to think about stuff and just check your water parameters. But it has nitrogen, potassium, phosphates, and magnesium in it. And you can make this mix yourself. You can see it's just made out of the dry mix and it crystallizes on the outside of the pump, actually. But it's 20 bucks. It lasts a good while. And if you get that plus some liquid iron and some liquid potassium, that will keep you set as a new user. Also, it's all about substrate. So you can forego liquid fertilizers if you want, if you have CO2. You can forego CO2 if you have good lights and you have liquid fertilizers, or you have good substrate and root tabs. So it's kind of like, which one do you want to use? We can talk about that in another video, but you can really amp up the use of one of those things to make up for another. There are certain disorders that you may eventually get to know, like yellow spotting on ferns and things. And also you can see here today, just starting, is this crazy algae bloom. I didn't even catch that until I squatted down and looked at it closer. But I'll have to be hand cleaning these guys. And I just do this to get rid of that hair algae. If you can nip it in the bud, literally like you would with a rose garden, and just kind of get rid of those threads, a lot of time just doing that is enough to get rid of it. But my main method to the madness, come on. Okay, I'll just wipe it on this rock. Don't tell anybody. The main method to my madness is I will let things just get totally covered in algae. And right now they haven't been doing it so much in this tank. It's kind of equalizing. But I'll let things get covered in algae. And then all I do is I throw them in with the Siamese algae eaters, the autosynclus, and the shrimp in that big tank. And they clean it up for me, and then I can put it back in. Keep an ant colony. It's great food for fish and shrimp. I agree. That's a good way to do it. Just don't get any ants that have too strong of toxins. Should I add blue velvets with my cherries? I would not if you want to keep your blue velvets and your cherries existing as they look, but you can and see what happens, and you'll probably get some mixes and then some wild ones. I have a serious question. My female guppies seem to be really hungry all the time, but I can't tell when they're going to have babies. Guppies are always hungry, and I've had guppies that have actually prolapsed themselves. They've eaten themselves to death to the point where their stomach bursts. So almost all fish can go, unless they're fry, can go at least a week without any food whatsoever. Fish are really good at that, and they're used to adverse problems. Is there a limit to how much plants you should keep in your tank except for space? Greetings from Germany, James Brown. I feel good. No, 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 no. So will they eat their babies? Yes. Sometimes endlers and guppies will eat their babies. I recommend throwing in some guppy grass. That's where it got its name, which is Naja grass, Naja, and it's good floaty grass. Also, just some dense vegetation for them to hide under. That will really limit it, plus keeping them fed at least 2 times a day, if not 4 or 5 small feedings a day, if you can do that. Hidey spots are a little different. I recommend, like what's going on over here in this tank, really having some floating areas and some like hornwort or Naja grass or water lettuce or salvinia, something like that, plus more areas down low where they can hide from these big adults. So like in here, I do have a couple younger juveniles, and they usually hang low once they get to a certain age. But usually with go on the go, many aquariums you got on the go. Yeah, definitely. And I do it for you guys. I probably wouldn't have this many right now if it weren't for the channel, just because of the amount of work. But you guys really make it feel worth it, and telling the stories that I learn when researching things and the connections I make, you guys make it all worth it. So thank you for subscribing, sharing, and backing me, helping me on Patreon. $50 is about what I spend in electricity and water bills in Seattle. It's pretty expensive. And then food is another bill. So I'm not there yet with the channel, but that's the ultimate goal of this channel, was just to support that. And then that way my own money of the hobby can go towards, you know, a couple hundred here and there towards microphones and cameras and stuff. So that's what's going to happen. And there's rewards too for backing if you guys are interested. Followed on Facebook. I've been watching Corey for a while now. I see you are in the same group. Yeah, Corey and I grew up in the same city. So Corey and Corvus Oceans and Mike from Aqua Pros. Here's some baby fry, by the way, endlers hiding in this tank. Where'd they go? They're in here. There's different sizes. This one's probably 2 months old, 3 months old here, but there's some younger ones, like right there. There's one, and this grass is really good for them. So when you look down, I've got water wisteria, and it's just a tangle for a few inches of grass. And even though I like this as an aquascape, I use that loose grass so I can just pull all the hornwort out and all the water lettuce and all the Naja grass and all that. I can just pull it right out if I want it to look back like the aquascape of stone that I intended it to be. But it's great for fry to hide, because the adults will eat it, especially if they're hungry, which they usually are. Cool. I've followed on Corey. Yeah, so Corey, Bob Steen fought. There's a whole bunch of us actually that happen to be in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. I've ordered some of that. I also have a really big plant in there, like a spawning mop. Yeah, I like synthetic spawning mops if you're going to be pulling them out and putting them in new tanks. And then if you're going to have a colony where you're not worried about it and you're just interested in seeing how many will breed, that's when I like to use plants. Is there a limit to how much plant matter you can have in your tank, by the way, James Brown asks. No, I would say not. As long as the fish can move, essentially, you can do it up to the point where you don't see your fish, and they will like that usually. I mean, depending on the fish. Some need open water, but as long as they have a few runways throughout the tank, like whether it's up top or along the side or a little like hole you've cut like in the vegetation for them, as long as they have some passages where they can get their exercise. Another good thing to do when you have that much vegetation, like if you have Valsinaria growing your entire tank, like it's all just reeds, is to put a power head in there, because they'll swim against that current, and all of a sudden your small tank might as well be infinite for their exercise. What's the best way to get yourself some new subscribers? I'd love to do what you're doing one day and take a bow, guys. Well, Fishaholics Habits, thanks, man. I've just been grinding at it. It hasn't been a super long time. I really started at the beginning of the year. December, I started the channel, and by February, I had enough to be monetized. YouTube's going through changes. I can't monetize, or they haven't approved my monetization, so I'm not making any money from anything on YouTube, and thus there are no ads, which I like. I don't want you guys to have to watch too many ads, but hopefully they'll monetize me, and at least that would be like, at this rate right now, it's estimating I'd get somewhere between $10 and $20 a month, but that would help for food and stuff, even though they tax that at a rate of 30%. So it'd be like $12. So I could get like a thing of fresh food a month, which it helps. So if you guys want to support the channel, you're asking like that, how to get more subscribers and stuff, sharing in forums, fish groups, find a video that pertains to someone you know and share that with them. That helps the channel a lot. But really, I'm just putting in the time trying to research, and I work from home as a graphic designer on a lot of gigs. Sometimes I work in shop as a designer, or at, City Hall or wherever it happens to be. But lately I've been able to research for a few hours, then, you could see the crib just took a dart, but it's 5 inches long. It's a huge crib, bigger than any I've ever seen. And the catfish are under here. But yeah, that's the best way to go about it, is just work on it, chip away at it. I want, Joseph Lambert, I want to grow my channel not to make money, but to spread hobby awareness. Yeah, totally, me too. And also, I like to work on the videos that give you lots of information about history, like the one where there's two that are like an hour long each or whatever, and they're about the history in total, a brief overview of aquarium keeping, or of the L naming in pleco keeping. And basically all those videos took me probably 10 to 20 hours to research and to write down and get it kind of straight. I don't do heavy editing. I feel like I want to flip it over, give you guys the best content I have, and the mental, like, I can tell you the same thing. I want it to be more polished, but it's not my full-time job. So really just sharing the info, trying to go places, show you guys whatever I'm seeing in the hobby and things like that is important. And then just trying to help out answering questions and grow the hobby is really why I want to do this. But when you're not monetized, it does hide your old videos. So if you guys have questions about like shrimp colonies, mixing different colors of shrimp, things like that, go to my channel and select videos, and then you can scroll through all like 200 or however many there are now. And there's also some playlists. So check that stuff out. I'm going to go now, but I will be back, I'm sure, Tuesday, if not sooner. And take care of yourselves so you can take care of your fish. And I will talk to you guys later. Take care, guys. Binge watching my videos. Well, good. I'll get a link in his descriptions. What am I posting? Just to the Facebook group? Yeah. There should be a link once this settles down in like 30 minutes or whatever, once it uploads. They should upload all that. So thanks for clicking that like button. Thanks for subscribing and telling your friends about the channel. If you dig it, it allows me to do more and more. Also, it allows me to approach vendors and fish breeders and be like, hey, can you let me have one of these, or come over and film yours to show people on the channel. Betsy, my Patreon link is in the description. You just have to scroll down. And also the link to aquaticarts.com and Flip Aquatics to get 10% off any of their stuff. That's also in the description. The Facebook link is not there right this second, but it will be there within a half hour by the time it uploads, basically. So, yeah. But thanks for coming and joining me today. As I said, I'm saying it again, take care of yourselves so you can take care of your fish. Have a great day. Here it's sunny in Seattle. I don't know if it's sunny where you guys are. Enjoy the sun. Enjoy your fish, your family, your lives. Take a moment. You're not blind if you're watching this, or you're not deaf, one or the other. And we're moving. It's good. We're healthy, happy enough to do certain things, and don't forget to be thankful for the little things. Don't forget to explore the little things. If you are bored, you are not paying attention, and it's a luxury. If you are bored, you have all your basic needs met for that moment, and it's time to explore the world. And that's what I'm here to do, and share it with you guys. Thank you so much. Much love to you guys. Swim on. I'll talk to you later. Bye.